the plague that made people dance until they died. Medieval Europe between the 14th and 17th centuries. Europe during the Middle Ages was a time of great hardships. Nearly endless wars led to frequent famines. As the 17th century philosopher Thomas Hobbes famously said, life, particularly for the peasantry, was unusually nasty, brutish, and short. One of the peculiar ways in which it appears the peasantry of the Middle Ages dealt with these hardships was through a bizarre phenomenon known as choreomania. The term is derived from the Greek words choros, meaning to dance, and mania, meaning madness or compulsion. Historical records from the 14th to the 17th century documents periods of dancing mania so frequently that they can't be dismissed as mere rumor or exaggeration. Outbreaks of this so-called dancing mania involve groups of people dancing erratically and uncontrollably, sometimes in their hundreds or even thousands. Like a disease, the mania would spread from town to town and even country to country as if it were contagious. Historical records are sometimes very detailed about these outbreaks, which affected men, women, and children, dancing often until they collapsed from exhaustion or injuries. The first sparsely recorded outbreak of dancing mania is actually from the 11th century, where on Christmas Eve in 1021, people are said to have danced en masse in the German town of Kulbeck. A couple hundred years later in Erfurt, another incident was recorded, and around the same time in Maastricht, it was said that 200 people fell to their death while dancing on a bridge that collapsed under their weight. However, the first well-documented outbreak of dancing mania was in 1374 in the German town of Aachen. For reasons that are unclear, the people of Aachen started to dance involuntarily. They moved frantically until near the point of total exhaustion. Within weeks, this strange compulsion has spread like the plague to the Netherlands and northeast of France. Hundreds of people uncontrollably jumped, leapt, and twitched for days. Another well-documented outbreak happened 150 years later in France. There was a woman called Frau Troffea who started dancing in the city of Strasbourg in July of 1518 for weeks on end. She was gradually joined by more and more people, and the situation escalated when the city authorities provided a stage and hired musicians in hope of bringing the bizarre crisis to an end. Once the first dancers started their strange ritual, however, others joined in, claiming to be overwhelmed by a compulsion. A manuscript in the city's archive of the time offers a glimpse of the scale of the epidemic that followed. It reads, "There has been a strange epidemic lately going amongst the folk, so that many in their madness began dancing, which they kept up day and night without interruption until they fell unconscious. Many have died of it." While seemingly improbable, dozens of medieval sources from different towns mention both the 1374 and the 1518 incidents. The latter was even mentioned in the city of Strasbourg's municipal orders, and it is clear from these records that during both incidents, the people afflicted by this dancing mania were not simply shaking from some unknown plague, but actually dancing, albeit involuntarily. They were obviously in great physical and mental pain as well. The records detail that most of those with dancing mania also had horrible hallucinations and could be heard praying for absolution in the middle of their dancing fits. Often they barely ate or slept, and sometimes they were not even fully conscious of their actions. The theories of what actually happened to cause these epidemics varied across the centuries. Some blamed religious beliefs and demonic possession. Others suggested the existence of a dancing cult, while others blamed them on mass poisonings which caused hallucinations and shaking. One of the most bizarre and yet widespread contemporary explanations was that the dancing mania was brought on by a curse from St. John the Baptist, or in other places, St. Vitus. Why or how either of these dead saints could have made such a curse is unclear, but so common was the belief that in many places the dancing mania was actually named after them, as in St. John's Dance or St. Vitus's Dance. In Italy, the dancing mania was sometimes called tarantism, and it was believed to be brought on by either a spider bite or a dangerous poison. Later on, as medical science evolved, a similar condition to dancing mania was labeled Sydenham chorea, but this disorder was thought to only affect children, causing them to have involuntary tremors in the arms, legs, and face. In 1888, a German gentleman named Justus Friedrich Karl Hecke wrote a fairly comprehensive account of the dancing mania phenomenon entitled The Black Death and the Dancing Mania. In it, he imaginatively describes what he calls St. John's dance as follows. They formed circles hand in hand and, appearing to have lost all control over their senses, continued dancing, regardless of the bystanders, for hours together in wild delirium, until at length they fell to the ground in a state of exhaustion. They then complained of extreme oppression and groaned, which they again recovered and remained free from complaint until the next attack. Modern researchers believe the outbreaks were most likely examples of mass psychogenic illness triggered by fear and depression. Both of the most well-documented manias of 1374 and 1518 were preceded by particularly bad periods of devastating famine, crop failures, and disease. Anxiety and fear, combined with a religious belief that such hardships were the result of God punishing them for their wrongdoing, made people, according to this theory, susceptible to mass delusions that may have gave them some reprieve from their dire situations. Ultimately, this too is just an educated guess. What is for sure, however, is that diagnosing a mass contagion from 500 years ago is not easy. We will probably never know what exactly caused the dancing mania of the Middle Ages, but the urge to dance away one's troubles isn't all that strange if you think about it.